January 2016. The most wanted drug lord in the world is captured after months on the run. Days later, it's revealed that a two-time Academy Award winner had secretly met him in the jungle. 2 Oscars, 5 nominations, and a private meeting with Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán while he was still a fugitive. Sean Penn wasn't filming a movie. There were no cameras, no script, no director to yell cut. Y was one of Hollywood's most decorated actors, sitting across from a cartel kingpin during an active global manhunt. By the time Sean Penn met El Chapo in 2015, he was not just a movie star. He was a 2-time Academy Award winner, with 5 Oscar nominations across his career. In 2004, he won Best Actor for Mystic River. In 2009, he won again for Milk. Few actors of his generation carried that level of credibility. But long before the jungle meeting made headlines, Penn had already stepped outside Hollywood's comfort zone. In 2002, he traveled to Iraq before the U.S. invasion, writing publicly about what he saw. In 2008, he met Fidel Castro in Cuba. In 2010, after a 7.0 magnitude earthquake devastated Haiti, he moved operations to Port-au-Prince and helped run one of the largest displacement camps in the country. Most actors protect their careers after winning Oscars. Penn moved closer to geopolitical fire. Then came the Rolling Stone article in January 2016, the revelation that he had secretly interviewed the world's most hunted drug lord while authorities were tracking him across borders. The red carpet had applause. The jungle had armed guards. Was Sean Penn chasing truth or chasing danger? Sean Justin Penn was born on August 17, 1960, in Santa Monica, California, into a household where politics, art, and defiance were not abstract ideas but daily conversation. His father, Leo Penn, had been blacklisted during the McCarthy era for refusing to testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee. His mother, Eileen Ryan, worked steadily as an actress. On the surface, it was a creative, privileged environment in Malibu. Underneath, it was shaped by confrontation with authority and the memory of professional exile. Leo Penn's blacklisting was not just a career setback. It was a lesson etched into the family narrative. Hollywood, the very industry that offered opportunity, had once turned its back on him. Young Sean grew up aware that power structures could punish dissent. Authority was not automatically trusted. It was examined, questioned, sometimes resisted. In that atmosphere, challenging institutions was not rebellion for shock value. It was almost inheritance. If your father lost work for refusing to comply, how do you learn to respond to systems that demand silence? Malibu in the 1960s and 1970s was not simply a quiet beach town. It was a mix of artists, surfers, political thinkers, and strong personalities. Penn was known early on for intensity. Friends described him as fiercely loyal but quick to react. He did not gravitate toward calm detachment. He gravitated toward involvement. Whether in school debates or social situations, he did not appear comfortable staying neutral. That tendency would later define his public life, but its roots were visible in adolescence. As a teenager, he experimented with filmmaking using a Super 8 camera, shooting short films with friends. Creativity was present, but so was a fascination with tension. The characters he portrayed were rarely passive. They confronted, they resisted, they carried emotional charge. Even before fame, there was a pattern. Interest in conflict, not avoidance of it. Was that artistic instinct? Or was it a reflection of how he processed the world around him? Education did not hold him for long. He left high school before graduating, drawn instead toward hands-on experience. The decision was not framed as failure. It was framed as independence. He wanted control over his direction. Growing up in a family shaped by political blacklisting may have reinforced a belief that institutions could limit you. Better to define your own path than to be defined by one. That mindset can create resilience. It can also create friction with authority later in life. There was also the pressure of proximity to Hollywood. Unlike outsiders chasing a dream from afar, Penn grew up close enough to see how fragile careers could be. He saw success come and go. He saw how quickly admiration could shift. That awareness breeds urgency. If the system is unstable, you either adapt quietly or push back loudly. Penn rarely chose quiet adaptation. His early environment combined privilege with ideological edge. He was not raised in poverty or isolation. He was raised in awareness of politics, reputation, injustice, and power. That combination produces complexity. It can cultivate empathy. It can also cultivate suspicion. In interviews decades later, Penn often displayed skepticism toward media narratives and government decisions. That skepticism did not appear suddenly in adulthood. It was consistent with the household in which he grew up. By the time he entered his 20s, two foundations were clear. First, a deep comfort with confrontation. Second, a belief that stepping into uncomfortable spaces was sometimes necessary. Those traits would later take him from film sets to war zones, from Oscar stages to clandestine meetings in remote terrain. But long before the jungle encounter with El Chapo, long before Haiti or Iraq, the internal script was already written. Authority is not sacred. Silence is not neutral. Engagement is preferable to distance. When a child grows up hearing stories of exile and resistance, does he learn caution, or does he learn that stepping into conflict is simply part of living? Sean Penn entered Hollywood in the early 1980s with access, connections, and raw intensity. His first significant role came in Taps in 1981, followed by Fast Times at Ridgemont High in 1982. The character of Jeff Spicoli made him instantly recognizable. The performance was loose, funny, almost carefree. Audiences loved it. Studios saw marketability. A star persona was forming. But Penn did not seem interested in becoming a comfortable icon of youth culture. While others leaned into fame, he leaned away from it. He resisted interviews. He pushed back against media framing. He avoided the promotional machine that typically polishes young actors into agreeable brands. The distance was noticeable. Hollywood rewards charm and accessibility. Penn appeared guarded, sometimes confrontational. It was as if he wanted to separate himself from the very system elevating him. Why would a rising actor disrupt momentum instead of maximizing it? By the mid-1980s, his career was accelerating, but so were his clashes with paparazzi. Between 1985 and 1987, he faced multiple arrests related to assault and reckless conduct. The most serious consequence came in 1987 when he violated probation after striking a film extra on the set of Colors. He was sentenced to 60 days in jail and served 33. 33 days behind bars while still in his 20s, already famous. The image was jarring. A young actor on red carpets 1 month, an inmate the next. At the same time, his marriage to Madonna intensified public scrutiny. They married in 1985 at the peak of her global fame. Together, they were a media spectacle. Photographers trailed them constantly. Every argument became rumor. Every rumor became headline. The relationship was described as passionate, volatile, magnetic. Allegations of violence circulated. Years later, Madonna publicly denied claims that he had physically assaulted her. Yet the early headlines never disappeared from cultural memory. When fame and conflict intersect daily, how does privacy survive? Penn did not respond to pressure by retreating into safer roles. Instead, he began selecting darker material. In At Close Range in 1986 and Casualties of War in 1989, he played characters entangled in moral violence and psychological strain. The performances signaled depth beyond the Spicoli stereotype. Directors saw commitment. Critics saw seriousness. But seriousness did not quiet controversy. It coexisted with it. There's a pattern visible in this period. Rather than protecting his image, Penn seemed to test it. Rather than smoothing friction, he allowed it to surface. Many young stars fear being perceived as unstable. Penn appeared almost indifferent to that risk. Or perhaps he believed authenticity mattered more than approval. The industry often prefers actors who maintain control personas. Penn cultivated unpredictability. Was that strategy principle or temperament refusing containment? As the 1980s closed, his marriage to Madonna ended in divorce in 1989. The split marked the end of one of Hollywood's most watched unions. For some observers, it also marked the consolidation of his reputation as volatile and intense. Yet professionally, he did not collapse. He continued working, refining his craft, gradually shifting from tabloid headline to respected actor. Entering the 1990s, he stepped further into politically conscious material and began directing films himself. The desire for control expanded beyond performance into authorship. Directing allowed him to shape narratives, to set tone, to guide rather than react. Control on set contrasted with loss of control in public altercations. That contrast is critical. On screen, within structured environments, he was disciplined and focused. Outside those boundaries, conflict resurfaced. This was the private path he chose. Not retreat, not apology-driven reinvention, but a steady movement towards serious work, while accepting the tension that accompanied his name. The jail sentence did not end his ascent. The controversy did not exile him. Instead, it fused into his identity. As his talent matured and his ambitions widened, one question remained unresolved. Was Sean Penn building a career that could outgrow his volatility? Or was he carrying volatility into every new arena he entered? By the mid-1990s, Sean Penn was no longer defined by Spicoli, arrests, or tabloid chaos. He was redefining himself through discipline. In 1995, Dead Man Walking placed him opposite Susan Sarandon in a role that required restraint rather than explosion. He portrayed a death row inmate facing execution, not as a caricature of evil, but as a layered human being. The performance earned him his first Academy Award nomination. The industry saw a transformation. The volatility that once dominated headlines was now redirected into craft. But was it redirection or simply refinement? Throughout the late 1990s, Penn continued selecting roles built on moral tension. In Sweet and Lowdown in 1999, he played a gifted jazz guitarist undone by ego and insecurity. Another Oscar nomination followed. By this point, the narrative around him had shifted. Critics were no longer discussing his temper first. They were discussing his precision. Directors trusted him with complex characters. Audiences began separating the art from the controversy. That separation is rare in Hollywood. It suggests that performance was beginning to outweigh reputation. Then came Mystic River in 2003, directed by Clint Eastwood. The film demanded emotional devastation. In one of his most famous scenes, Penn's character learns of his daughter's murder and collapses into a scream that feels less like acting and more like rupture. The moment became one of the defining dramatic sequences of the decade. In 2004, he won his first Academy Award for Best Actor. On stage, he appeared composed but tense, measured in tone, controlled in expression. Even in triumph, intensity lingered. 5 years later, he won again for Milk in 2009, portraying Harvey Milk with vulnerability layered over conviction. 2 Oscars within 5 years placed him among an elite group of actors. Fewer than a dozen performers in modern history have achieved multiple Best Actor wins in such a short span. By any professional metric, this was the summit, critical acclaim, institutional validation, longevity secured. But the spotlight during this peak was not confined to cinema. While accepting awards and attending premieres, Penn was also stepping into political arenas. In 2002, before the U.S. invasion of Iraq, he traveled to Baghdad to observe and write about conditions on the ground. In 2008, he interviewed Fidel Castro in Cuba. He voiced criticism of U.S. foreign policy publicly. These moves were unusual for an actor at the height of mainstream success. Most protect their brand. He exposes. The contrast sharpened his public image. On one hand, the Academy applauded his ability to portray grief and courage. On the other, news outlets debated his political judgment. Supporters saw moral commitment. Detractors saw overreach. The red carpet and the geopolitical stage began to overlap. It is one thing to act in a film about conflict. It is another to place yourself inside actual conflict zones. Why step beyond performance into risk? Even his personal life remained under scrutiny. His marriage to Robin Wright, which began in 1996, appeared steadier than his first, yet it faced periods of separation before ending in divorce in 2010. Success on screen did not guarantee harmony at home. The public narrative was now layered. Decorated actor, political traveler, complex husband, unpredictable personality. At the height of his artistic authority, Penn did not retreat into comfort. He did not soften his edges for broader appeal. Instead, He allowed the spotlight to widen, illuminating both achievement and risk. This was not a man content with safe prestige. He seemed compelled to test the boundaries of his influence. When an actor reaches the top of his craft and still chooses to walk into controversy, is he expanding his purpose or escalating his exposure? The deeper Sean Penn moved into global issues, the thinner the line became between engagement and overreach. What began as political curiosity in the early 2000s evolved into physical presence in unstable territories. In 2002, just before the U.S. invasion of Iraq, he traveled to Baghdad and wrote an op-ed describing what he witnessed. Supporters called it courageous. Critics called it naive. The debate was immediate. Yet Penn did not withdraw. He appeared almost comfortable in controversy, as if scrutiny validated purpose. In 2008, he met with Fidel Castro in Cuba. The interview drew sharp reactions in the United States. Some questioned the legitimacy of an actor engaging directly with a long-standing political adversary. Others argued that dialogue, even controversial dialogue, had value. For Penn, the meeting reinforced a pattern: proximity to power, especially contested power. He did not comment from a distance. He placed himself in the room. But when an artist begins operating in diplomatic spaces, what safeguards remain? Then came Haiti in 2010. A 7.0 magnitude earthquake devastated the country, killing more than 200,000 people and displacing over 1 million. Within days, Penn was on the ground in Port-au-Prince. He co-founded what became J/P Haitian Relief Organization and helped coordinate one of the largest displacement camps in the region. For months, he worked alongside aid workers and local officials. Unlike symbolic charity appearances, this was operational involvement. The effort was acknowledged internationally. Here, intensity produced measurable results. Yet disaster zones also carry adrenaline, urgency, constant crisis. Was this humanitarian commitment also an environment aligned with his internal rhythm? The most controversial chapter arrived in 2015. Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, leader of the Sinaloa cartel, had escaped from a maximum security prison in Mexico and was the subject of a massive international manhunt. Through intermediaries, Penn arranged a secret meeting. The encounter reportedly took place in a remote jungle location. In January 2016, Rolling Stone published Penn's article detailing the interview. Shortly afterward, El Chapo was captured. Mexican authorities suggested that communications linked to the meeting contributed to locating him. Penn denied playing any role in the arrest and emphasized his intention was journalistic and policy-focused. The optics were explosive. A two-time Oscar winner sitting across from one of the most wanted criminals in the world, while governments mobilized resources to find him. The image blurred categories: actor, activist, amateur journalist, risk taker. The backlash was swift. Media outlets questioned judgment. Commentators debated ethics. Law enforcement scrutiny added pressure. The conversation shifted from performance to responsibility. When a celebrity inserts himself into an active criminal investigation, does fame amplify recklessness? Internally, this phase represented accumulation. Years of political travel, public criticism, and personal volatility converged. His divorce from Robin Wright in 2010 marked the end of a long chapter of domestic life. Relationships following that period were intense and short-lived. Stability seemed elusive. The public narrative returned to duality: respected actor, polarizing figure. There is a psychological through line worth examining. Penn has consistently moved toward situations where stakes are high and environments unstable. War zones, disaster relief camps, meetings with authoritarian leaders, interviews with fugitives. These are not accidental detours. They suggest attraction to intensity beyond artistic expression. Some individuals thrive on elevated stakes because it sharpens focus. Others seek it because calm feels unfamiliar, which applies here. Critics argue that the El Chapo meeting demonstrated ego, a belief that access to danger validated importance. Supporters countered that storytelling requires proximity, and that refusing to engage controversial figures maintains ignorance. Both perspectives carry weight, but the cumulative effect on Penn's public identity was undeniable. The The Oscar-winning actor had become a figure associated as much with geopolitical spectacle as with cinema. The internal collapse in this narrative is not a dramatic implosion of career. His acting credentials remained intact. It is subtler. It is the erosion of clear boundaries, the merging of artist and participant, the difficulty of disentangling motive from momentum. When activism becomes personal brand and danger becomes narrative, clarity fades. Meanwhile, cultural standards shifted. The 2010s brought heightened scrutiny of public figures' behavior and accountability. Past volatility was re-examined through a stricter lens. Actions once dismissed as temperament were reassessed as potential harm. In that climate, Penn's history appeared heavier. The tolerance once extended to intense genius narrowed. The world changed around him. Did he change with it? Even after backlash, he did not retreat. In 2022, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Penn was present in Kiev, documenting events and expressing solidarity with Ukrainian leadership. Again, he entered an active conflict zone. Again, headlines followed. The pattern endured. Engagement over safety. Presence over distance. The dark side of this arc lies in repetition. Repeated movement toward volatility. Repeated blending of celebrity and crisis. Repeated defense of controversial choices as necessary engagement. Each decision layered onto the previous one, forming a complex portrait. Sean Penn mastered fictional conflict on screen. Off-screen, he repeatedly stepped into real conflict without a script to contain it. The Academy Awards offered structure and applause. War zones offered unpredictability. The jungle meeting offered secrecy and risk. When intensity defines both your art and your life, does it become impossible to tell where performance ends and compulsion begins? After the El Chapo controversy, many expected Sean Penn to retreat. The backlash was global. Commentators questioned his judgment. Law enforcement scrutiny added weight. His credibility outside cinema was debated publicly. For a moment, it appeared that the actor who had navigated war zones and political interviews had finally overstepped. Yet retreat has never been his instinct. Instead of disappearing, he recalibrated. But recalibration for Penn does not mean withdrawal. It means repositioning. His humanitarian work in Haiti continued beyond the immediate crisis years. J/P Haitian Relief Organization eventually transitioned operations to local leadership, reflecting a longer-term strategy rather than symbolic involvement. Penn spoke less about spectacle and more about infrastructure, housing, and sustainable support. The language shifted, less dramatic, more structural. That shift suggested maturity. But maturity is not the same as transformation. The intensity remained, only channeled differently. In interviews during the late 2010s, his tone occasionally appeared more reflective. He acknowledged mistakes in communication. He defended his intentions, but conceded that perception carries consequence. That nuance marked a subtle evolution. Earlier versions of Penn often met criticism with defiance. The later version, engaged in explanation, was his growth, or strategic adaptation in a climate less tolerant of confrontation. Then, in 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, Penn was again in Kiev filming a documentary. Air raid sirens replaced applause. Government buildings replaced film sets. He publicly expressed support for Ukrainian resistance and later pledged to melt down one of his Oscars if Ukraine did not win. The gesture was symbolic, theatrical, and intensely personal. Some saw sincerity. Others saw dramatization. Yet the pattern persisted. Proximity to crisis. Visibility within conflict. Age introduces perspective. In his 60s, Penn no longer embodies the volatile young star of the 1980s. Physical altercations have faded from headlines. The arrest belonged to another era. What remains is a reputation defined by seriousness and risk. He appears less reactive in daily encounters, more deliberate in public positioning. But deliberation does not erase history. It reframes it. A different kind of rebirth in his case is not about softening into calm domesticity. It is about integrating conflict into purpose. The younger Penn fought cameras and institutions. The older Penn fights for causes he deems urgent. The target shifted from personal intrusion to geopolitical crisis. Whether that shift reflects healing or simply evolution of battlegrounds remains debated. True rebirth would suggest reconciliation with past volatility, with criticism, with limits. Evidence of reconciliation is partial at best. He has not renounced confrontation. He has not apologized broadly for temperament. Instead, he appears to accept that intensity is part of his architecture. The question becomes whether architecture can be redesigned in later life, or whether foundations only allow renovation. There is also the question of identity beyond conflict. Actors often retire into mentorship, into reflection, into quieter influence. Penn's path remains active. Documentary projects, public statements, humanitarian engagement. These choices indicate that stillness does not appeal to him. Stillness may feel unfamiliar. For someone who has navigated fame, jail, red carpets, disaster zones, and clandestine meetings, calm might feel like absence rather than peace. Yet age inevitably narrows horizons. The body slows. Cultural conversations evolve. Public patience shortens. In that shifting landscape, Penn's later years will define whether his narrative settles into redemption, complexity, or unresolved contradiction. Can a man who built his identity on stepping into conflict ever fully embrace equilibrium? Or will intensity remain the engine driving every chapter until the final one? As Sean Penn moves further from the explosive headlines of the 1980s and the El Chapo controversy of 2016, his legacy begins to crystallize in layers rather than headlines. Within cinema, his place is secure. 2 Academy Awards for Best Actor, 5 nominations, performances in Mystic River and Milk that remain reference points for emotional precision. Film historians and acting coaches still cite his work as proof that restraint and eruption can coexist within a single frame. The craft endures. That part of the story is not in dispute. But outside film, the narrative is less unified. His political travels, controversial interviews, and repeated entry into global flashpoints form a second legacy running parallel to the first. For some, he represents an artist unwilling to remain insulated by privilege, someone who used fame to gain access where others could not. For others, he embodies the risk of celebrity overreach when visibility substitutes for expertise. Both interpretations persist because both contain evidence. His humanitarian work in Haiti remains one of the most concrete chapters of his public life. Thousands received shelter and medical support through efforts he helped coordinate. That impact is measurable, documented, acknowledged by local authorities. It cannot be dismissed as symbolic. Yet philanthropy does not automatically neutralize controversy. It coexists with it. The record shows sustained commitment, but it also shows sustained proximity to volatile power. Culturally, Penn's trajectory illustrates a rare phenomenon, an actor who refused to compartmentalize his public and political selves. Many performers separate advocacy from career to preserve marketability. Penn blurred that boundary repeatedly. He allowed the geopolitical to intersect with the cinematic. That choice produced both admiration and backlash. In an industry often defined by image management, his refusal to smooth edges became part of the brand itself. Time will influence interpretation. Future audiences may emphasize the artistry, viewing the political chapters as footnotes, or they may view the activism and controversy as central, with the Oscars serving as context rather than conclusion. Legacy is not fixed. It is negotiated across generations. What remains undeniable is the consistency of his pattern. He moved toward intensity, whether on screen or in unstable regions of the world. He did not pursue neutrality. He did not prioritize comfort. That approach shaped both his acclaim and his criticism. When the spotlight dims permanently, will Sean Penn be remembered primarily as a master of cinematic conflict or as a celebrity who repeatedly walked into real conflict and refused to step back? Sean Penn's story is not a tale of simple ascent or collapse. It is a story of convergence. Cinema and politics, applause and accusation, fictional tension and real-world risk. From serving 33 days in jail in 1987 to winning 2 Oscars within 5 years, from meeting Fidel Castro to sitting across from El Chapo, the arc is defined by proximity to power and volatility. He mastered the art of portraying men under pressure. Then he placed himself under pressure without scripts or lighting cues. In film, conflict ends when the scene fades. In life, conflict leaves residue. The distinction between representation and participation is where his narrative becomes most complex. Perhaps he believed that understanding danger required stepping into it. Perhaps he believed that fame imposed responsibility beyond entertainment. Or perhaps intensity, once embedded early in life, simply seeks environments that match its frequency. The industry rewarded his discipline. As an actor, the world scrutinized his choices. As a citizen, both reactions shaped him. Both will remain part of his record. If the red carpet offered applause and the jungle offered risk, which environment revealed the truer version of Sean Penn? The performer shaped by conflict, or the man who walked into it without a script?